John McCabe set out to create Shift, one of their goals was to design immersive programs that would assist people in recognizing the unique combinations within their life that make people in recognizing the unique that make them truly one of a kind, and they have most definitely succeeded. We are so happy to have them joining us today to share a little bit about their leadership journey. Owen Foster is a designer and educator with vast experience in architecture, landscape, environmental, and industrial design, and is passionate about the relationship between design and learning. It's been stated that there is no such thing as a boring conversation with Owen, and I can attest to that. He is the co-founder and director of Ether Global Learning and Shift Design Camp, where he aspires to cultivate free-thinking, compassionate practitioners who will passionately lead their local and global communities through logical discourse, impeccable craftsmanship, and sound strategic direction. John McCabe has led and educated at the intersection of technology, design, and society for over 2 decades by meshing the physical and digital, blending the raw and the refined, and catalyzing equitable cultures of collaboration. Currently, he leads the evolution of enterprise-level digital experiences in IBM's Data, Fabric, and AI division. Prior to this, he directed the development of advanced design concepts for Branch Technology, an additive manufacturing company envisioning and producing solutions for construction-scale off-world technology. During the past 20 years, he directly contributed to applied research projects in product development with BMW, NASA, Reebok, Disney, US Space Force, Dell, Google, and others. His teams and their efforts received 36 international honors and awards for multidisciplinary product development, foresight scenarios, and startup ventures. Gentlemen, we are so looking forward to this conversation, so I won't delay by another moment. The floor is yours.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that intro. I'm not even sure that was me, actually. Right?
I didn't know we were going to read the whole thing. It's great.
And first of all, I want to say amazing presenters, and I've been left inspired, especially from the last one, because it feeds right into what we're about to talk about. Because we're 2 designers and educators that are looking to, you could say, cultivate and foster leadership in a very unorthodox way. And so I'm going to let John kick it off. I'm Owen, by the way. And then we're going to go through what we call Shift Design Camp.
Yeah, thanks. So the intro was pretty good. But just a little bit more about my background real quick. So I'm John McCabe. My original background was in architecture. So I went to the Rural Studio at Auburn University, which is in the southeastern United States, designing social innovation around the physical space, architecture, and how that can change people's lives and affect it. And it totally changed my life as a designer. I really saw the impact of design. Which led me into industrial design, which I thought was more co-creative. And in that field is where I met Owen, where we taught together at Auburn University, later at the Savannah College of Art and Design, where we worked on a lot of really, really interesting projects around the world with different companies. And that's where we got to see a lot of the young designers coming up and just seeing how well equipped they were for a lot of stuff, but then not as equipped for some other things. And so that's where we really started getting into the idea about building Shift, which we'll dive into a little bit more. And so now currently I'm at IBM and I manage a team of designers. So I've gotten to see, young designers in the classroom, and then what are they like out in the corporate world. So enterprise scale software design is what I'm working at now for Watson AI. And I don't know if Owen, you wanted to add anything else to your intro, or you want to keep going?
I mean, pretty much we walked a lot of the similar paths. Where he was in architecture, I did landscape. We both have degrees in industrial design. We both taught it. And so I think where I've bounced in and out of industry in different ways, I think we both have found the same passion. How can we grow at all aspects of life? But then how can we pass that knowledge and wisdom on to make sure that the next generations are even greater than we are? And I think that's what inspired me about the last speakers. Like, that is what I dream the world is going to be. The younger generations setting the dreams of what the world could and should be. So I think that's where I'm all wound up just listening to the last group.
Definitely. Yeah. Pull your mic a little bit away from your, sure. I think you're kind of rubbing a little bit there. Yeah. when he gets excited, you'll never be able to stop it. So just kind of want to tell him now. So going back to our time together at SCAD, we're there about 10 years. And so in the classrooms at the Savannah College of Art and Design, which is one of the largest design schools in the world, it's those classrooms were incredibly diverse, socially, racially, culturally. And that was an amazing time to kind of like see how that collaboration comes together with all that diversity, right? That's where the magic happened. But we did see some gaps, right? And those gaps came in like, how do you deal with ambiguity? Those teams really couldn't understand when there was these unknowns, this VUCA environment. And then also how do you deal with like physical and mental stressful situations, all that together. We weren't able to put down quantifiable metrics for that in the classroom, right? And so if we couldn't do that, we couldn't get a lot of support to kind of figure out how do we make the students better leaders in these environments. And so over the years, we started realizing that we needed another platform, something that we could layer on top of or outside of the walls of the classroom to add those opportunities for critical thinking, more collaborative skills, dealing with that ambiguity and building confidence around themselves, and trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their lives after that degree.
Yeah, and we started trying to build a communities and we always label it the makers, the dreamers, the rebels, like the movers, the shakers, and things like that. And so, how could we make a platform to accelerate this talent? I mean, even their creative relevance around education and where they want to be, where they started, all of those things. So we labeled it Shift. I think Shift actually came from let's just shift where we're going to be, where we are now, or let's disconnect. Let's see how far we can move. And so we started looking at the camps basically as a collaborative adventure, right? Wherever we were, it was a hyper local theme. So you were connected to the place in which you were there. And we did it through workshops, field trips, discussions, reflections. And then we even ended the night with campfire conversations with professionals from around the world that would just like ask the core questions of where do you want to be? What was the thing that I wanted to hear when I was at your age? And so what they did, we wanted it to touch their hearts, their minds, and their souls, and through their hands. And in other words, we got really into the philosophical part of what are they missing from the hard skills that they're learning in the classrooms. And so we wanted to basically rejuvenate the growth mindset, right? Have it to where they can see and be part of creative problem solving and infuse that passion back into their lives. And this goes from elementary school all the way up to CEOs, because we've had all of those types of different generations at the same table. And of course, we did it in a fun, more, you could say, unconventional way, because it was basically to see how they could see things and think about things and then do the things. And we wanted to, and this is where our personalities kick in, especially mine. How do we get them to embrace the chaos in which design in the world can be and be part of that fantastic experience and journey, what we call life? And we ended, and what our philosophy was, if we teach each other, we're going to learn from each other, and then we come together to create something amazing together. And I think that was the platform in which we wanted all of the shift camps to be based on.
Yeah. So just so everybody can kind of understand what a shift camp might be like, since we're not really going to share, we're not going to share any of that here. You can go check out our website, shiftdesign.us, to get a little bit more insight into that. But imagine like summer camp, Burning Man, lots of designers. It's usually weekish, maybe 3-4 days to a week long, somewhere between 40 to 120, mix of young professionals, thought leaders, professors, all across the board. Some of our events are middle school, elementary school, high school focused. Some of them are college, and some of them have been like industry level professional events. And so really across the board, it's been really nice to kind of like seeing that diversity, just generational diversity as well. It kind of helped us refine some of those toolkits and things. So what's interesting though is from the outside, we've been doing these since 2013. We've graduated, I don't know, probably close to 3,000 people through the program. Um, and from the outside, they kind of look like they're just weekend fun summer camp events, and that they're not really about cultivating leadership. And that's usually from people that really don't have a lot of leadership experience and see the value of it. And so what happens is we invite all these people to come out to the camp and experience it and stand on stage or around the campfire and be there and experience it. And usually when they walk away, they're like, wow, this is very different, unorthodox, like Owen said. And it's truly cultivating leadership experience. There's kind of like three levels that we kind of focus on when we're developing these out. One was that hyper-local theme that Owen talked about, which was like each camp may be at a different location. What's something that's relevant to that location, right? So being there levels the playing field, right? So it's an environment that everyone is in some place new. No one has the upper hand. That means no one can bring that baggage with them to those collaborative spaces. The next would be, what are the activities that we're going to do, right? Some of these are going to be focused on the mind, right? Some mental challenges. Others are going to be physical challenges, and others are going to be very reflective. So like soul searching, internal discussions with yourself. And it's the sequence of those all together that kind of unlocks these magical moments. And the reflective one is the hard one to get in there because you need enough time together to get to those points. Because usually, like if it's like hustle, bustle, run, do the facilitation workshop, have the activity, but it's the reflection that typically is where the growth moments happen. It's something you can take away from that. And so we need to really come up with a longer length of time to get in there and do that. And then the third thing is really understanding the individuals. Who's going to be there? Where are they? Right. So meet them where they're at. Like some of them are looking for places to grow from because they don't think that they're there. Others know where they want to go, but they don't know how to get there. And there's others that are just confused. They've maybe followed their life path as they were told to do from a young age, and now they are kind of stuck and they're trying to figure out what to do with their life. Right. So there's a lot of different personalities and places that people are at, and so meeting them there. So it's those three levels that we really kind of focus on.
And then when John was talking about, the place and the activities and stuff, and we constantly hear about safe space, right? We want everyone to feel that they belong, that their voices are being heard, and all of those things. But we kind of went with a little bit different phrase. We talk about brave space, meaning you're still safe. The environment is very positive, but it's the space in which you put out your ideas, welcoming the challenge, the conversation, the critique, because we have found that that type of, you could say, positive friction has allowed for a greater understanding. It actually fosters creative dot connecting, where we take this, and we start understanding because someone's telling us, well, have you thought about it this way? Have you thought about it that way? Oh, wait, no, let's back up and start all over. And it's that jockeying back and forth, and it's almost like everyone there becomes information translators. Like, what am I hearing? What I hope people are hearing? What are the dots in which we're trying to connect? And so what that does, it gives you life skills for pivots in life. We both have taught, and I still teach at college level, and we're preparing you for your careers, yes. But most of my class is getting you prepared for those pivots in life because we all know they're coming. We all know we have changes. And so what we're looking for is, how can we help the next generation feel prepared and empowered to take on those challenges? Anything the world throws at you, how can we make sure that we're making the change, the leaderships, all of those things within a single person to where they're prepared? And then if we do that, then next generations will be way better than we are. And so the way we started breaking down the camps, right? We know how the basis of what we're trying to teach and what we're trying to do, but then how does this happen? Right? We have camps, we have activities, we have individuals. So we were looking at environments, the props, and then the agents in which we're trying to make change in. And so the camps kind of are, again, brave spaces, and a lot of environments that most of the students are not used to. We've had some that have never been off of pavement ending up in the backwoods of Alabama on 3,000 acres, right? And so, but how do we make everyone feel that they're included and equal and belonging in communities in which they've never met before? And that's the trick. I think that's the beautiful part about Shift is once you're there and once you go through a couple of events and you've talked to people, you're finding that you do belong in this community. Because diversity for us in thought, where we're from, the different backgrounds, the different environments, that's what makes creativity. Creativity feeds on all of these differences. So let's start where Shift started, Alabama, right? It's my backyard growing up. And so John and I were looking like it's an easy win. Most of these students have never been off pavement. They've never been camping. They've never done those things. And so how can we mix basically the humility and simplicity of my backyard growing up on a farm and take away the technology? That I think that was the biggest hurdle. We took away the comfort zone of technology and it allowed them to reconnect, right? Some of our first events were, you could say, a little odd. We had little activities and little different things that they would do, and we would take a certain way, and then next thing you know, we're launching fireballs on things that they built during the day, and it's just like, what in the world is happening? But you started seeing this bonding of they're cheering, they're yelling, and doing all of those things, and then we have some camps that we've hosted there, and I think we're going to talk about one where you saw from sympathy to empathy just because of what they were doing, right? And so Alabama was the rawness, and that was the one that we hosted the most right at first. But then we said, okay, we have to get out of this to change the environment to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and believe it or not, we're already at like 2/3 through this, so we may have to speed up a little bit. As expected, we talk a lot. So one of the other camps that we did was at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville. And that was really interesting because it was the opposite of disconnecting from technology. We embedded ourselves into it. So we went through the entire young astronauts program, right? We were in zero G, we were manning the space station, all those kind of things, this stressful environment, things that people haven't done before, leveling the playing field, and doing activities that are going to be memorable. And they're going to keep reminding themselves about what they learned in them. That was really key for that one.
Yeah, and then we said, okay, let's get outside the boundaries of the US and go mix with other cultures. So we went into the beautiful countryside of Wales just to talk about how do we change perspective. You can't appreciate the valley until you go to the top of the mountain and look back down. You can't appreciate the mountaintop until you see it from different levels. So that's kind of where we were going and going to different countries to make sure that we're mixing and trying to cultivate different cultures.
Right, right. And so then diving into some of those actual activities. So you can imagine the week is full of activity, lecture, reflection, activity, lecture, lunch, dinner, all that kind of stuff. You can imagine like filling out that spreadsheet. And so figuring out that sequence of events is pretty critical, right? There's some magic there that we're not going to talk about right now, but it's the thought-provoking, like team-based activities mixed with the personal reflection time, right? So the mind, the body, and the soul. This impacts all the different activities that we kind of set up for, and so we want to make sure that there's enough time. If I'm very physical, that I have enough activities to make sure that I feel like I'm a leader in those activities. If I'm internally minded individual and I want to like mentally stretch, that there's enough activities for that, right? And so through that sequence of activities, we kind of get these this raw physical fun mixed with this mental stretching, mixed in with these long mentally soul searching hikes or activities and things like that. So Owen's going to talk about one of them, and then we'll try to get through them in the next few minutes.
Yeah, and so going back to the one I was talking about, sympathy to empathy, it was based on the spectrum of humanity. I'm from the hometown of Helen Keller. She was an amazing lady, blind, deaf, and mute, but it took an amazing teacher to pull that out of her. So what we did, we took activities throughout the week where we took senses away, we made them do different things, made them uncomfortable. And what we were looking for is if I'm blind now, it's a disability. If I'm born blind, it's normal. So why is it any different? So the end of the week, we said you have 3 hours to build a carnival booth. And it's based off of special needs or disabilities. So let's say John and I on the team, we pull out a thing that said autism, right? So we had to build our carnival booth to cater to the needs of autistic people, but not to exclude anyone else. And the only things that you can use are the things that you find around the property. So within 2 hours, we had nothing. There was absolutely nothing. We were panicking. But on that third hour, we had centuries, we had waterfalls, we had touch, we had memory. It was an amazing carnival. And people were playing and going to each different thing, but they didn't know we had a bus coming with blind, deaf, Down syndrome, and autistic young kids to young adults and their families. They went in and engaged with our students. That's why I said it went from sympathy to empathy instantly. 2 to 3 years later, we were still having people write to us, thanking us for taking time for their children and their young adults to show them that the world cares about them in a different way. I mean, that was probably one of the most amazing ones we had from a heart, right?
Yeah, definitely. That was a tearjerker. I mean, we were having such a good time as a team, kind of like you can imagine now 100 designers all building probably 10 different booths. It was a true carnival. And then this bus pulls up and a whole nother group that was going to come in and experience all of these booths. It was life-changing for some of those designers.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And they saw the power of design there. Another one, which was at an event called the Simply Complex Camp. It was kind of focused on how do you make things simple from the complex, right? And so one of the actual activities, like engineering a poem, we brought in a poet, and they picked a poem that was pretty important to them, and we went through and divided it up into all the stanzas, and each team had their own, and they had to sit there and spend the day with that stanza, dividing it, thinking about it, unpacking it. And what we ended up doing is they needed to physically manifest this poem in a Rube Goldberg machine in the middle of the forest. So you're out there, you've got sticks and tires and tractor parts, and now you're trying to figure out how does the cadence of the poem that speeds up and part of the poem that slows down with lots of pauses, and how does that manifest itself physically as a Rube Goldberg machine across not just your part, but across the entire poem. And it was chaotic and difficult, and you had to test and fail and test and fail. And there were some people that were thinking through it, and there were some people that were physically trying to solve it. And from the outside in the video, it looks like, wow, you made a Rube Goldberg in the forest. But it was so much more than that. And the people that participated really kind of understood it. I think that's a good example of the raw and the refined kind of coming together and to create something that is simply complex, right? It is very hard to do what that group did.
And that was actually very playful as well. I think that's the fun part about it. It become very playful.
Yeah. Lots of smiles, lots of laughs. And sometimes things didn't go as they planned, right? So how do you kind of navigate from those failures live when we're trying to do it? And so then, like, diving into the people a little bit, right? So, like I said earlier, some of our participants are searching to figure out who they are. Some of them, they're trying to leave something behind and be something new. And then there's someone else that could be showing up and it knows what they want. They just don't know how to get there. They need to build their network. They need to figure out how to be a better leader. They need to become more humble with their skills, something like that. And so that's where we really start understanding who's going to be a part of this, and trying to help them get to wherever they want to go. And I think one really good story is Meg Price, who's actually, she was a student of ours at SCAD. And she says that she was actually like made in Alabama because she went and participated in these events when she was pretty young as a college student. And she definitely found her voice. And she, in the first camp, was quiet and never really talked. In the second camp, she was a little bit louder. Third camp, she was owning things. Fourth camp, she was like on stage teaching us. And then since then, she's just been a killer in the design industry. If you don't know her, you should. And now she's the youngest WDO board member. And so kudos to Meg for kind of rising up and growing and becoming just a just a hell of a designer and a great mentor for everybody.
And we even had, I was in Beijing, I was lucky to give a presentation there, and some students saw it. They had never been to the US. They said, oh, we want to go there to your shift camp. They went to the major cities, of course, like New York, Chicago, things like, and ended up in the backwoods of Alabama with their roller suitcases, pulling it in. And what they were like huddled, and just like the group before us, like, in their likeness. I walked over like, why are you here? They said, oh, we want to be introduced to the American culture. Okay, then split up and go talk to Americans. And what was funny was they were very timid. And the next thing you know, they were hands-on in it and presenting in a whole different voice. And their instructor came and said, we have never seen them break out of the shell like this. And it was amazing to watch someone from a different culture come in and instantly change. I mean, talking about an instant change, Rose, she was a student from interior design and thought she was not even part of our group, right? She didn't feel part of the tribe. And so she worked through and then next thing you know, she became one of the key components of building that cultural core as she like jumped in and started doing extra things with us. She was part of youth camps. She was helping me lead a what we call A+ for young girls in Appalachia. She came back and now she's an entrepreneur alongside of her interior design job, creating products and jewelry. And it's just, you just saw it grow into her where she become a leader within herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think another one that we had, join Shift was Natalie. And so Natalie, she was a great student. And at some point in her career, I think she went back to her undergrad. She was trying to finish up her undergrad,
Mhm.
and something financially happened, right? And she was just like devastated. She wasn't going to be able to graduate and become a designer. She posted something simple. It was on Twitter or Facebook or something like that. The entire Shift community came together and raised a bunch of money, right? They gave her confidence. They gave her the physical things that she was missing. They helped support her in so many different ways to become the designer who she is now. And she is doing so good, from Warby Parker onto the next stuff that she's doing now. And this a ripple effect, I think, is what we love to see, right? We've got people that have left and graduated from our program and are now passing it forward, right? I think the one thing that I love seeing is that they found the passion of teaching within our camps and working with us, and now they're doing it in their own lives. And it's just great seeing them to become thought leaders, design managers, professors, facilitators, just across the design industry. And I keep thinking back to, like, you know what, it is because we help them become a leader by building out a safe place for them to grow, the brave spaces that Owen was talking about, and making sure that we heard them, and amplifying the voices and feelings that they had, so they felt confident about leading, but also following, as part of that collaborative process as a team.
Yeah, I mean, and we talk about this all the time. It's not always about creating a better world for people. We've tried to do it multiple times, millions of times, and we keep goofing it up. For us, it's let's focus on helping cultivate better people for the world. And then in turn, the world becomes a better place. And truthfully, that's what Shift is.
Yeah. So again, thank you for this time. We really appreciate it. We're kind of like at the 30 seconds left, but if you want to learn more, shiftdesign.us is a great place. I think some of the Shift people will probably be at some of the WWDO events coming up, and then we'll also probably be at the IDSA events in September. So come check us out there, and please come, if you see us, shake our hand.
Thank you so much, Owen and John. That was a perfectly timed session, which we love as we.
That rarely happens with me. That rarely happens.
That's why I'm on the call.
We definitely appreciate that. And thank you so much for that engaging conversation over the last 30 minutes.
Thanks.
Thank you.